this act. Why? Because they're defying God intentionally. Now let's move on to the responses that they've made to my original response.
I want people to understand it. And this is for your fans, Farid. I know I have to probably explain this 75 times and they still won't get it. Okay. Here's me claiming to be, pretend I'm someone claiming to be a prophet. And here's the Quran. There's me, there's the Quran. If I say I affirm this book, and I say that there's things in this book that are not in this book, where's the problem? Is that a problem for me or is that a problem for the book? If I say I affirm that book and I say the book contains things that are not in that book, is that a problem for me or is that a problem for the book? That's a problem for me. I'm showing that I do not know what's in the book that I'm affirming. And suppose I contradict what's in the book. Suppose I start contradicting what's in the book. Who would that be a problem for? The book or me? Well, if I'm affirming a book and I'm contradicting the book, that's a problem for me. You don't say, oh, well, the book must be messed up then.
David's argument is based on the presupposition that the Quran affirms the Bible. However, David hasn't established that yet. We're going through these arguments one by one. If the Quran had already affirmed and claims that the previous texts are preserved, then yes, there would be a problem for the Muslims that are pointing out these differences between the Quran and the Bible. However, I'm not granting you that. And notice how David says,
I'm showing that I do not know what's in the book that I'm affirming.
You see, that's what David doesn't get. When I provide this example, I'm demonstrating that the Quran is very familiar with what is in the Torah, and it intentionally contradicts it. This means that it's contradicting something intentionally. It can't be a mistake because it's doing this intentionally. If you are conflicting with something intentionally, then you are undermining what is in that other text. Hence, the Quran is not affirming the preservation of the previous scriptures. Whereas we have a lot of verses in the Quran that clearly change what is in the Bible.
All right, so this is his summary. This is his summary response to us pointing out that the Quran affirms the inspiration, preservation, and authority of the Jewish and Christian scriptures and contradicts those scriptures on fundamental doctrines, basic doctrines about the nature of God and everything else. His response to this argument is that the Quran corrects mistakes in the Bible. Well, one, it's not correcting mistakes. It doesn't say that it's correcting mistakes. The Quran claims to be saying the same things that are in the previous scriptures. But the Quran says different things, which is evidence for our argument. That's evidence that we use. Notice, if the Bible says Abraham did this and the Quran says Abraham did that, and Farid would say, therefore the Quran is correcting it. Again, the Quran doesn't claim to be correcting it. It's just explaining it's just supposedly telling the same stories. But notice, suppose there's just a difference. How would you know that the Quran is right?
Yeah.
Right? So just to be clear here.
That's the problem.
You don't have Abraham's not around to interview to see what happened. You have sources on Abraham. So you've got the Bible. Abraham's in the Bible. Abraham's in the Quran. If they disagree, if there's a disagreement between the Bible and the Quran, why would you say, the Quran is right and it's correcting the earlier story? Say, because the Quran is correcting the corrupt story. What happens when the Quran says that no one can change his words and that you can't pick and choose what you believe from the Torah? Well, one of those books just self-destructed. The Torah does not affirm the Quran. So the Torah is free to disagree with the Quran. The Quran affirms the Torah. So the Quran is not free to disagree with the Torah. If the Quran disagrees with the Torah, as Farid has just said, then what happens? The Quran self-destructs. The Quran affirms scriptures that contradict the Quran. The Quran has just obliterated itself. Farid understands the points here, but I don't know. He just doesn't get it.
You know what would be interesting?